Hey, what's going on? Welcome to. You just threw off my intro. All right, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. The two panelists are going crazy today. They've got me out of my mind here. How's it going? Welcome to AngularAir. Let's just say hi to our panelists right now and get this episode started. Mike, what's going on, Mike?
Not too much. Just ready to hang out, ready to not write some code, and yeah.
Well, you just get to hang out today. You're writing code. You are writing code today.
I'm in the driver's seat today.
Actually,
okay.
Yeah.
I think we're going to make him do all button gradients. I think he just signed up for that, so that just happened.
Oh, nice. All right. All right. Get some
Son of
CSS
gun.
on. Alyssa, how's it going?
Amazing. So excited to be here today. And seriously, this pair coding on this, I know it's only episode 3. And it's just been so much fun. I hope the audience is enjoying it as much as I am, because just feel like I'm flexing a little bit, getting to use some skills I know and then learning other ones. So I like that.
Random thought. Instead of calling it episode 3, let's give these names. Like random.
Oh yeah, names. I love it. The one with okay, so Justin, can you do exactly what you did when we were off air, but now that we're on air? Because you were like, we're gonna cover this, this, and this, and then based on that, we could name this episode.
Yeah, sure. I can absolutely do that. So should I give a recap first of the other 2 episodes that we did? Okay.
Yeah.
So a little while back in the day, not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, we started working on this scheduler app to do scheduling of AngularAir episodes. Something really basic that we can have a form that we can ask people to, provide us some information so we can schedule an episode, pick a day for it, and have that in our catalog and help us, get more guests and keep the show rolling. And so we started hacking on that. We decided we're going to do that live on stream. We'll do a couple AngularAir shows where we, all 3 of us come together and work on that code. So we've done 2 episodes so far where we've done that. We kind of started the process. We started building some common components for some UI and using Storybook to do that. And then we dove a little bit deeper and started creating our application for our scheduler app and started seeing how we could maybe use those components. And today, we have a couple different things. So one of the things we were working on with Storybook is trying to figure out how to add some documentation around design patterns and stuff that we want to use for our design system as we build these components out. Yep. And we've discovered some more information of how to do that in Storybook. So we're going to dive into that and see how we can do documentation in Storybook. And then we also, behind the scenes, before this episode, started working on some of the routing and stuff for our scheduler app. So we're going to dive into what we've set up for that, kind of the concepts of how we'll get the data and what kind of pattern we took for that, and see what we can hack on there as well. So title.
I know. I'm writing this down. So you said documentation within Storybook, made easy, adding that part, and then also routing in the scheduler app. So I guess it could be some sort of how do you combine those two? They're very
Well, I would call it either foo or bar because, right? Because naming is hard. No, I don't know.
I would call it foo or bar. I'm going to say documenting UI in Storybook with a side of routes. Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Perfect. I'm tweeting that on our thing and we can add it to
What
YouTube.
about Storybook stew with a side of routes?
Like stew that you eat or stew like my friend Stu?
Isn't that just the difference between a capital
Both.
or lowercase s?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. I'm asking for a friend. I'm asking for Stu.
Lowercase.
I mean, sometimes I refer to my stew because it's so delicious as a capital stew. So it could all, it's all a wash. It's all a wash.
That's true. That's true.
So we're using live share today. Question in regards to the live share that we are using today. When I type in the codes, it's your instance of it. So you'll be committing all of our codes at the end of the day because it's not my codes. It's your codes that I'm typing.
Correct.
On. Okay.
Correct.
That's a mind bender. I'm ready for it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
It's
so if you want, you can write bad code and Justin,
and then it's under his name. Yes, 100%. Yep.
Actually,
you think that, but VS Code has this little thing where on the commit message and from the commit window, it'll add also supported by blah, blah, blah.
Blah blah blah.
So
No,
as long as it provides
it
that,
doesn't line by line it though. It's just a generic like they
yeah,
were
it's just like, it's just for the commit message. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. Can you, so when you share your screen, can you walk me through a little bit, one more time, and maybe it would be helpful for the audience, of the sides of the project? Because there's, last episode, you showed us how to use the things that we've been building out in Storybook actually within our scheduler app. And I kind of get overwhelmed. Like, I really like what you've been teaching me with monorepos and using NX to do things like, generate a scam. And it's like right there and it's beautiful. But also when I go to our project, I feel a little claustrophobic because it's just, do you not get lost? I get lost. Do you not? Like,
I don't know how to answer that. Yeah, sometimes I do.
I'll be right back.
You don't get lost, Justin. You like
Sometimes.
whenever you're like, oh, I need to open the scheduler app, like, exactly where it is, or, oh, I need to go to store my Storybook components. Like, do you search for them and that's how you open them, or do you just know where they are within your application?
It's kind of how I like to think about retaining certain knowledge. It's if I know how to get to where it's at, then I let that thing take care of it, right? So like, for example, when I try and remember things or think about things like patterns or something I want to do development wise, I think about like, okay, do I need to memorize this or do I need to just know how to Google it, right? Or search it. And so this is the same thing. It's going to be in this repo somewhere. So I kind of like say, okay, as long as I can kind of get in there and navigate through the repo and know kind of the organization of stuff, then I'll be able to discover exactly where it is. So I kind of like say my mind doesn't have to memorize that. So I lean on that. So I kind of,
because even for like little projects, I will just use DevTools and inspect and be like, oh, I called it this, and I'll search for like that class or something. And that's how I find the component to work on it, because I really struggle with like this like mental mapping of an application. And so adding a monorepo on top of that, where there's different parts and they're playing together and sometimes they're not. And so I think it's just fun to see how you work and how your brain works through this. So I like it. I've been enjoying it.
Cool. Yeah. So I just kind of like you have there's this apps folder, and that's like different apps, right? Like, can be whatever apps, right? In our case right now, we have a couple different Angular apps, and we have Cypress apps that support those Angular apps, right? And so the apps folder is where all the apps live. And then the libs are everything that supports those. And inside the libs, then there's going to be some organization in there or that sort of thing.
Do you
and so I just kind of go,
let's say we made some kind of weird, like if we were streaming with OBS and we had something like a webby, I forget what they're called. It's like a web service that you hook into OBS, and it's for AngularAir, right? So like, and it's like just this little essentially like website that's a quick splash thing that OBS is going to use to pull on. Would you put that within this monorepo under apps, or no, because it doesn't ever integrate with anything else here? Like it's a one-off. Like where's, I'm trying to gauge like what belongs in this monorepo. How do you decide that?
So like a good example here with this AngularAir platform, right? Called it platform to be like, this is all the AngularAir things, right? Anything we might need to do, whether it's integrating with OBS, whether it's, the site, the scheduler, anything else that we come up with over time, this would be the repo where we can house all that code, right?
Okay, cool.
And
so there's no one like, oh, it doesn't touch the website, so it doesn't belong here. Like it doesn't matter.
Right. Because the idea of the monorepo is that you're bringing everything into one repository. Now you have, you get the benefit of access to all that code from other pieces of code. You don't have to like go through and say, I have to have a NPM server that I got to distribute this to and then pull it down and import it from there. You're doing like local imports, from your code base. So it becomes easier to iterate over that other code, that support code, and then use it right away, right? That's one of the challenges that you have when they're disconnected, is that you have this publish pipeline that you need to have, and we had this a lot in .NET when we had NuGet started coming into play, or things like that, or where you build, a repo, or you build a lib, right? Some support code or whatever, and you'd want to make a change to it. And there's high friction to do that, because you would change that library code, and maybe it's just a small thing like a presentment of a string or whatever. You have to change it, then build it, then publish it. And then your other application that's using it has to update its, version of that instance that it needs to do, pull it down just to get like a little change and see it right away. And so that's one of the big benefits, I think, of the monorepo is that all that code is housed in the same thing. So it's really easy to say this lib I need to change. Like in our scenario, right? Like if we needed to change our button components, border to be something different, and our app is consuming it, right? And that common lib that we have for our buttons is an npm package. Then we'd have to change the border, publish it to npm, go into our website, update the resource, the dependency, download that, and that whole dance just to get there.
There's another level of the dependency piece that makes sense in a monorepo as well. So it'll help you pull in your own dependencies of the code that you're writing. But on top of that, any external dependencies are all of the same version. So you don't end up in a scenario where you have 3 different libraries here, and in the middle. We'll do 3 because it's a shell game. If you have these 3 different libraries, they can't all be pointing at different versions of a library because it's all under a single package JSON. So you have one version for all of them. So you have that level of consistency being enforced. So you don't have to worry about different versions as you pull in other dependencies.
I think what you just mentioned, Mike, is the part where I get a little angsty because, and maybe Justin, you could point to in our app, like, does the Angular CLI support monorepos in such a way that like I can be like ng new monorepo, then I have my monorepo and it's already pointing those dependencies in such a way so that I can just new app, or is that manual setup or an NX thing? Like, because that's the part where I'm like, oh, they're sharing dependencies. Great. Where is that happening? Like,
we're in NX. Can you open up, Justin? Can you go back to your VS Code? I know you switched the browser.
Sorry.
So if you look in your NX JSON, I think, or no, the base TS config is probably the
base TS config.
You're not sharing the screen. Just
maybe he is.
He may have been bringing it up for us, so that's fine. So if you look here where it says paths on line 17, actually, wait, can I wait?
Why don't you? Yeah, why don't you highlight it from the live share? There you go.
Pink my stuff is. I'm pretty pink.
I know. I love this. It's beautiful.
Okay. Cool thing. I just highlighted that on my computer through live share in Justin's session. And he sees what I'm highlighting. It's his screen that's being shared.
Justin tried to show me these earlier and it went way over my head. I was like, oh God. I think it was like I was asking questions about @NGAir and I still don't understand.
What these are is it's our way of telling TypeScript that whenever you encounter this path, go look in this directory. Right?
What's the point of that? Like, why wouldn't we just use that that path that you're highlighting? Why would we?
Renames and other things. So this is also is a little bit long, but let's find out anytime that we're using this. If I do a quick search, that is not what I was trying to search for. I want to copy. Come on, let's copy. I'm a real developer. I can copy and paste. I swear.
All right. How do I follow you? Where? Let's see. I gotta go.
Yeah, like, is it showing the search?
The speaker icon.
Speaker icon.
Yeah, that one. If you click on that, you should be able to follow me. Are you there?
Right.
Oh, you know what? I'm following you. Let's.
Fergus said alias.
There we go.
More aliases. I love them.
Cool. So in here, we're using this path here. And this path, to me, is a little bit long. So if I go back to, I don't have that open because you had that open.
But is it an option for like a person to just put in the full path, or do you have to use the?
So if I wanted to use this, right, and I'm just making that shorter, right?
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't like that. But if I were to go to my TS config in the root. Is it TS config base? Is that where we were? Thank you. So if we were to come over there and then I replace this here. Wait, I wasn't selected. So having
Fergus
this,
said
and this isn't just a path for here, and this works. Okay. So
Fergus said you can use the full path, but why? So I guess Fergus is just like, in my mind, what they just showed me, it is making the router module a little bit cleaner
So-
to read, but also it's like separating like information like into
let
two
me
different
drive
places,
let me drive
right?
home the point for you a little bit further. So sure, we can make this name smaller, right? I'm gonna put that. Can I put that back? No, it's not gonna let me undo. There we go. And then I just put this one back. Cool. Just to return everything to where it was. So this is fine, and it saves us it saves us some typing. However, we can't just use this path because these paths need to be relative. So I'm
Yeah,
already
that's
I'm
a part that
down.
I always run into, that I'm like, oh God, like making it so you're making it relative to where you currently are, right? Yes, yes. And that's exactly what
Yeah.
mine look like. And you're saying, why are you doing this?
Because then if I move this folder, and I don't even know which path I'm actually in
I
here.
understand. I see what
at
you're
that point.
saying. Right, right. Okay.
If I were to move this file now, say this path was correct, and I move this file, then I have to go and change that import path as well.
Okay, so yeah, Fergus saying if you ever use the dot 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 slash dot 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 slash, consider using alias. But also, for the mono repo, is there one file that's the brain? And like, is this app module our mono repos app module, or is this our schedulers app module? Like, are there multiple app modules and one rules them all?
So this is an app module. This lives in the scheduler app.
Okay.
Is where we're pulling this library in. But the brains is basically telling TypeScript, how do you resolve things that live in different places?
Oh, okay. Which is
Does that make
TS
sense?
config. Like that is the mono repo's brain. Can we call it the mono repo's brain?
Well, there's that aspect, but then there's also the point of how do you build each one separately if it's set up that way. Then that's handled by either the nx.json or your AngularJSON.
nx.json or AngularJSON. Okay. Okay. Sorry, Justin derailed us. We can go talk about, because I did last week. I was making I got on stream and I was doing for UI Mondays. I was like, hey, I'm going to make a storybook story in our app that has all of our components listed out and our colors and our variables and everything. And I literally got this idea off of a project that my husband works on, and it's like live in production, real project. And that's how they use Storybook. So I'm really, really anxious to know, Justin, is that what you learned in Storybook? Like how to fix, not do that?
Yeah, so I think I hopped on your stream at one point when we were talking a little about it. And I'm like, okay, Storybook provides ways to do documentation, to document things like your design system and stuff, separate from components. You can also have this documentation. And
show it now. Show
yeah.
Show it
okay.
now.
So wait, really quick.
Now.
Before we wrap up this, the monorepo thing, a couple of things I wanted to point out. Because Alyssa, you asked, like, is this a Angular CLI thing? Is this an NX thing? Like, so the Angular CLI provides the opportunity to have multiple projects. It comes with that out of the box, right? Long time ago, it didn't. Potentially, it had the code in there, and we had to kind of press to say, "Come on, just activate that." Once that was activated,
you're saying like I can do ng new mono repo, or what do you mean by multiple projects support out of the box? What does that mean?
Nomenclature. So you've done .NET, and you know that there's solutions and projects, correct?
Yes.
The NX stuff and the Angular CLI have the concept of a workspace and projects.
A workspace
where
and projects.
A workspace, it would be synonymous with a solution, and projects are projects.
And monorepo is neither one?
Monorepo is the concept of having that all in one place.
So monorepo is not another word for workspace?
Potentially, because
sorry, I didn't mean to
when you hear monorepo, the base word is repo, which is repository, which means Git.
Yeah.
And mono just means one. So everything under the same version control. Workspace is an umbrella to bind together multiple projects. So they are talking about similar concepts of having everything under the same umbrella, but they have different nuances.
Okay, cool.
So the Angular JSON file, right, from the Angular CLI supports multiple projects already. Typically, when you ng new, you're getting one application to start, but under the hood, it's actually scaffolding the things in place so that you can have multiple projects, right?
Okay.
And so this file is kind of like the brains that keeps track of all of the projects that it wants to care about that's in your repository, right? So we can see here, like we have the scheduler app, we have the Cypress app for scheduler, we have some feature libs and service libs for that. We have our UI common lib. They're all considered like projects under here, right? And kind of keeps track of all of that for us. And then NX is all this powerhouse stuff on top of that leverages these things to provide, functionality that makes it, much more efficient for us to work in a monorepo scenario, knowing that it's trying to help solve things for that.
Go to make a new project, like when you went to go make scheduler, did you say like ng new scheduler like in a specific point in the monorepo and then it added it to the Angular JSON, or is like an NX thing that you type out so that it does this for you?
There's an app generator, and when you do the app generator, it knows it's wired up to know like to put it in the apps folder. So I say, I'm going to generate a new app. So I do the app generator and then I give it a name and then it puts it in the apps folder somewhere, wherever I want it. Right.
Okay.
And if I do the, a lib, it'll generate it in the libs folder. So when I was talking about like how I think about where these things are organized and how I find it, it's knowing that like, did I create an app? Did I create a lib? And then I go to those folders. And then from there, somewhere in those folders is the answer.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like when we think about the apps, if we can think about making the apps as like this, lightweight shell to get things going. And then the libs is where all of the code that exists that we use inside of apps, from UI to features to whatever. If we build those as libs, then we're setting ourselves up to be able to reuse those in different apps. So imagine
I think libs for like noobs can be daunting though, because it's like, I automatically know what an app is. I've used apps, I've written apps. You're like, oh yeah, just put all that in a lib. And that to me is like, cool, I'm going to break this very hotly. Like, because I'm assuming I don't just get to do exactly what I do in a app and just like, oh yeah, wrap it in a nice little lib. And then it's like, I'm assuming there's differences. Like you have to separate it differently or initiate it differently, right? Like it's not just an app wrapped in a lib.
It's a way of also segmenting your code for structural reasons. And there's tooling, especially with NX, and I'm not sure how much is in there from the CLI to prevent you from reaching from one bucket to another.
Okay.
Kind of like slap your hand, you go reach for the cookie jar. It's like, no, don't do that. So
is this the documentation part? Like, so brand component was what I wanted to put all of our components under. And that's, you can see, I was going to do sizes and fonts and see our components. And you're saying you don't make a story? Wow. What?
Right. Right. Okay. So hopping in the Storybook stuff, right? So I wanted to cover how we can make documentation pages for Storybook. And so we see here on Storybook, we got it running, right? Do you see on the upper left in the menu, I have this intro now.
That wasn't there before. How'd you do it?
Wasn't there before. I'm going to show you how he did it. And you see it has a nice little icon, looks a little different, looks like a page icon, right? Instead of a component. If we go there, we have our documentation just says intro, right? So Storybook provides a way to do documentation. You can do it in several different ways. The way that I'm going to do it here is using MDX files. So Markdown X files. It allows us to write in Markdown, but also
I thought MDX was only like a React JSX thing. No.
So Storybook is running React to do its UI. So it provides these functionality there. Oh, look, Mike's changing it. I'm assuming Mike's changing it.
Darn it, Mike. Some people are trying to learn. Okay.
I just added it.
No, you just jumped ahead and you already know where that file is, and I don't even know where that file is. Perfect.
All right. So we have this intro page, right? And allows us to type out something that we can kind of say, you know, hey, this is our storybook. We're starting, this is our stuff, blah, 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 right? And then we could also add like a another page for our colors. So let's do that.
Yes, let's do it. Show me how. So excited. Mike, what's that brown thing behind you? It looks like a soda stream made out of wood.
Oh, this?
Yep.
That would be
Making you
pause.
take a pause.
So it'd be a wooden headphone stand that I made.
Oh, you made it? You do woodwork? Oh my gosh. I learn something new about you boys every day.
Okay, so
Justin has one.
I do. It's out in the living room, so I can't just grab it and show you right now.
Actually, this is another one holding headphones.
Wow. Betrayal.
It's his future side hustle.
Levels. His future side.
All right, so in our UI common folder, right, in our libs folder for our UI common, I created an _docs folder. Why did I name it _docs?
Sorting.
Just kind of like one of those hack ways to get it to the top of the list, right? You can see we have a bunch of components already. So I _docs so I can get it at the top of the folder
at the
structure.
top.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I created a file called intro.stories.mdx. And so Storybook out of the box is already configured to look for stories.mdx files as well as our stories.ts files. And it'll surface that, right? And so in here, I created this MDX file. The Storybook has an add-on called Docs that provides a bunch of components and whatnot to support doing documentation, right?
Hi, Sai.
So they have this meta component. I think it's a component that we can use to define kind of like information about the page at the kind of like the title's using the browser title.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
So we call it intro. We can do a couple other things here, and then we can just start writing our markdown in here to do our documentation, right? So we had our intro. Mike was in here typing some stuff, and that's why we saw that on the screen was the content coming in here. So you can do any type of markdown stuff, right? That you want to do. You can do text, tables, links, lists, that sort of thing. We can do all that stuff here. The other thing that we can do, this docs, I think it's the docs, provide some other type of fancy component stuff that makes it easy for us to do type of like documentation. So let's do this. I'm going to add another one here. I am going to add a file called colors. How about that? Yes. Okay, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to bring this in here. And now I kind of need some meta stuff. We'll change this to colors. Okay. So this thing, like I said, has some stuff that can help us out for this. So I think there's a color palette. I'm going to actually go back to the browser and let's bring this thing in here.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to learn about this. What is this color palette? Oh, I need to know. Tomorrow is my son's 3rd birthday. We have 2 parties, each with over 34 people coming.
Ooh, that's a lot.
So there's over 100 cupcakes on my counter right now that need iced. I decided, I was like, I'm going to make all the cupcakes by hand. And all my friends were like, why?
I thought you were going to say that needed eaten.
Oh, no, they need icing
like,
first and then eaten. Yeah, no. I was having Zach taste test the icing like last weekend because I was trying to get the recipe right. And I was like, I can't for the life of me eat another bite of sweets. I hate this. And he goes, I was born for this. So there's different type of people. Some are not meant for cupcake tasting. Color palette. So you're importing this from their add-ons.
Yeah. Okay. So do one of you want to grab that link I just shared in the chat and
Thanks, Fergus.
go there. And then why don't one of you work the code
Document.
here in the
Yeah, I wanna
background,
work
and
the
I'll
code
keep my
here.
browser open.
Okay, I
And,
already. You're talking about share my screen because I have VS Code open. Is that what you're talking about? No. Yes. No.
No, we're live share. So you go ahead and go to this
Right.
Color Stories
Sorry.
MDX that I added.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm
you're already
there.
on it. There you go. Perfect. Okay. So you do that while I go here and see if this will
Put you
render
on the
right.
right
Okay.
side of my screen so I can see you. I'm
Let
gonna
me
hide
actually
that.
ditch
Did I
this.
change?
I don't have any coloring for this file. Do I have to download an MDX extension or something? How do you have coloring on that file in your VS Code? Syntax highlighting. Just randomly pick one.
Oh, yeah. Grabbed an MDX extension for VS Code.
I will
Yeah.
randomly pick one. This one looks good. Install
I'm good
it.
with that. So I saved some stuff into colors.stories.mdx, and it does not seem to be rendering. Do I also need to probably pull in color item?
Oh, yes. You have to pull in color item. Yeah. How about one of you share your screen, and that way I can just jump from my share of the browser to your share of the code, VS Code.
I got you.
Awesome. There we go. So we've got our colors page, and we've got, basically the stuff from this color palette example on Storybook to render this, right? So I'm going to throw Mike's code up here.
Is that big enough, or should we go bigger?
One more bigger.
Go 1.6.
All right. So do you want to show the? Oh yeah.
I didn't install an extension, but we're good.
Okay.
And actually, let me resize this so that it's a little bit better. And wider. Good. Okay, cool.
All right. So the add-on docs has this color palette and color item, these components, right? And so we see here from line 5 through 31, that's the color palette component. And so that provides a UI way to show a set of colors, right? And some information about them. And then color item is each of those colors. And those have these properties that you can set to kind of define it.
Fergus and Sai wished happy birthday to Mr. Milks. Thank you. And Sai said, are you working with Live Share? And we are working with VS Code, Visual Studio Code Live Share. I know. Fergus, my brain hurt faces because Mike threw in these color items. Justin seems to have a wrap on them, but I'm still trying to understand, because I know, I'm building out color variables in one of our SAS files, and so now I'm trying to figure out where they're going to live and how to integrate with Storybook's add-on for colors, and I don't know where they should live. I'm like, do they live in here?
Where do your colors live?
They currently are in our common styles. It's inside of, I think it's called common style. Yeah, that one.
So
those are variables, but I'm like, where should they be? What are we doing?
Yeah. So there's two aspects, right? There's how we use these in our components that we build, and then there's how do we surface information about how to use them and what's available to Storybook.
I assume they would be the same way, right? No.
So I'm still trying to investigate and find a solution on how in this MDX file I could just render the
we might go that route
set up so that we can just manage them in one spot.
Fergus is suggesting CSS variables, and I think we might go that route because you have a lot more power to integrate with JavaScript, and so then we could just do that, and then have it. I'm thinking instead of a common styles SCSS file, we have a common styles TypeScript file, and that plugs into our common styles SCSS and feeds it the variables. But we have that one place that we change it, and then maybe our markdown file also has access to that, so you can loop through your variables and be like, print out red, blue,
Yep.
Maybe I think that's what we probably need to do. Maybe, unless I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. But let's start with seeing how we can use this color palette and color item to document and show that information, right?
Yes.
So I think Mike's going a little crazy right now, adding a bunch of stuff here. What I was thinking is we can add, start adding some of these colors here. So you've already, Alyssa, you've already defined some of our colors that we want to work with, right?
Yes.
We have those here.
That's what I was bringing in. These are colon. That's all good. Then they're comma delimited. So if I do that, make that comma. This looks like it probably needs to be in quotes, as does the dark gray. Let's get rid of this.
So let's get rid of the other color items too.
Oh,
Just have the one.
wow.
All right.
That's a funky monkey way of doing it. You want to see something? I'm going to share you with. I just looked up, I guess, outside of CSS variables, it looks like we might be able to do something with exporting maybe our Sass variables and then having access to those in templates. But also, this feels fragile. Like doing it in TypeScript first and then importing that feels less so. But I don't know. This is just an idea. Just quick.
I don't disagree with you. I just wanted to copy them in just to see the story aspect of what that would look like.
Is it showing now on the site or no?
I don't know.
So
I only
you got to surround the color codes as strings. They're strings.
These?
Oh, I think both.
Yeah, those right there. Yeah.
Or yeah, I think they all do, right? Because shouldn't red be a string?
Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right, so let's check it out. There we go. All right, so on our storybook, we have some documentation for our colors, right? We see the examples of the colors. So we're using this color palette and color item that Storybook's documentation add-on provides us so that we don't have to like write all the HTML, like lay that out or anything, right? It's pretty nice.
No, that is nice.
So we go back to the code. We're basically going in here and we're setting up the colors that are going to render in there. We're put that property on the left is whatever we want to call it, right? In terms of our documentation. So if I go back to the storybook, you can see like we call this red, light blue, blue, gray, right?
Yep.
And then the color value is the color value that we use, the hex color value, right? So ideally, and like you're talking about, Alyssa, like finding some way to have this documentation about these colors, but actually pull the values from our file that we'll use in our components as well, so that we don't have to, update it in two places.
So the nice thing is that this is I'm not a React developer, but this basically looks to me like color item is a React component. And it takes in different values for the title, subtitle, and the colors. And what it does is it will take that and render out itself as a component, whether it's markdown that gets transformed later. I don't know the inner workings, but it's basically very similar that this is a component that you're giving it some sort of properties that it knows what to do with it and render out to the browser. And a color palette seems to be a wrapper around each color item to essentially loop around those. Well, if we set this up as a loop, we could have.
So I think we can do some things like this too. Like this supports code. So I think we can go like const colors. I think that we could maybe do something like this.
I'm not sure what MDX syntax looks like.
Yeah, I don't remember what the double curly braces are for or whatever. Let's see if this works real quick. No. There's some way that you can do variables in here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a matter of learning what MDX syntax supports.
Fergus said, since when you spell gray with an E, I've always loved that version of the spelling, and both are grammatically correct, so deal with it. It feels more proper. I like it.
right, so that's the color palette, right? And so some functionality there. Let me go back here and see.
Sorry.
There's a typeset. So they provide
Oh
a
yeah, I
component
love
that you can do
it. Yeah.
typeset with TypeScript. So that looks like this. We bring in typeset, right? Oh, and here's where you can define a variable. So it's like, okay, here, set up your typography. And then down here is using that typeset component and configuring it. And now you can display all your different sizes and everything like that, right?
So I was asking, is this file type not supposed to have colors? No, Mike just refuses to download an MDX extension to give his syntax color.
It gets colorful if I highlight something. It's like a blue shade. See, look, it's blue.
It's
Blue is blue.
It's like 2 clicks, Mike. Go download it.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, so let's throw in. I'm gonna start working on throwing in like typeset and some other doc things.
Okay.
If I don't know if you want to jump over and do routing while I do that, but I love this part. I'm trying to pull up
Yeah,
the
let's
storybook.
do
It's
that.
storybook
We'll do that.
docs. I think is where you were. Go to the docs. That one. There it is. Okay.
Cool. All right, Mike, you want to drive? I'll
I driving?
narrate.
Okay.
And we'll go to some files that you have color coding for. So that'll help. Yeah. All right.
So if we go into where did we define our models? It was the scheduler app, I thought.
Yeah, so let me let's see here. I will share this really quick with our browser. So we've got our scheduler app that we set up. We have added a little bit of content to it, and we added some routing to it. So right now I have the scheduler app running from our repo, and I'm hitting it. It's serving on localhost 4201. Mike, I believe, suggested 4201 last time, so that's our port we're using. And we have this landing page that when you come to it, it has some information, right, that we're going to put in here and provide a way to talk about our scheduler stuff.
So 4201, because we already have an existing application in here that's run on 4200. So just to be able to differentiate between the two, if we want to have both running at the same time.
Right. Right. I think the website is our 4200 one. Correct. So that's the other one. Yeah.
So in here, we're defining where our routes are, but we added additional functionality onto those routes by adding some guards. And I thought we had specified that in here, but I guess it's inside of each individual one. So if we go
feature,
to
yeah,
definition, it was not that particular route, was it? It was the feature episode. Right?
Episode request. So what we thought about was that we would have, information on our scheduler app about being a guest on AngularAir, but we would generate like an episode token to then provide a link to somebody to say, here, if you're interested in being a guest, here's the link where you can go fill out the form. And we would capture, when we create that, we would capture and reserve an episode ID at that moment. And then our guests could fill out the form. When they fill out the form, now we have their information about their episode and we have an episode ID, and we kind of got that ready to go into our system to keep track of that future episode. Right. So initially we thought we don't want to just have a page where anybody can just go to the page and start filling out the form and submit, a gazillion requests or whatever. Right. So we want to kind of have a little bit of control there. That's why we thought this idea that we would generate an episode ID and then we'd send somebody a link with that ID. And then if you go to the link with an ID that's available in our system, then you'd be able to get to the form.
You want me to go to the service?
Yeah. So what we did is we have our route that we set up here for the episode, right? And we did a route parameter for EID on line 14. And that allows us to say, okay, we're expecting that you're going to come into this URL, whatever our scheduler app is at, /episode, I think is our route, and then /an ID. And we have a can activate service that we use on this route. So in Angular routing, you can utilize can activate and provide it services, an array of services, and those services, if they implement the can activate interface, they'll have a method on them that gets called by the can activate routing service that goes through and executes that code and ensures that it returns back, you know, a Boolean that says you're allowed to go here or not. So it's interesting with the router. There's two things that you can do with the Angular router, right? For route guards, there's the can activate and the resolver. And the can activate is the concept there is that it's going to run each of these pieces of code that you tell it to run, and only if those things come back with true is it going to allow that route to load, right? So it provides you a way to hard block access to a route without, and run your logic first before you get there, before somebody actually hits that component that it's routing to.
You see Fergus's question just now. I don't know if it was relevant to exactly what you're asking, but where do you stand on index.ts to avoid using deep imports? Is that a thing?
So I'm assuming you're referring to a library with that, or are you talking about with individual components? Because what an index.ts will function as is a barrel file to combine multiple exports into one place. It's hit or miss for me. If you're defining it at the library level, index.ts makes a whole lot of sense, because what you're doing there is controlling what the public API of that library looks like. Inside of a library, you have access to everything that's in there. So I usually don't end up creating those unless I'm exporting a lot of things from a given folder. So just to be able to consolidate those things. But typically I just use that at the library level personally.
Yeah, I don't deep import across libraries. I use, you know, the paths to get library to library access. I deep import inside of libraries, like you're saying, Mike. Like, so if I'm in a lib and I want to access other files inside of that lib from a file in that lib, then I'll do a relative path there. But yeah, all the lib to lib references are paths.
Yeah, and looking here at this particular instance, I'm assuming this is what you're referring to. The component is pretty much only going to be referenced in the module, and you're saving this in one particular place. And I wouldn't create an index file in there just for the sake of saving this typing here.
But you can see on line 5, right? This this ng module for our feature needs to leverage our form component module that comes from a lib. So we use that path, right? Where we saw the short path to import that from another lib that's within our repository. All right, so we have this route, right? We do this can activate because we want to say, okay, run some logic before we load this sign up page. And let's make sure that like all that logic executes and it tells us that we're allowed to go here. One of the things we did here with our features is we tried to separate out the business logic from the UI logic, right? So we created another lib. And do you want to show that in the tree? Or in the
Which lib are
Explorer
you
things?
referring to?
Okay, so in our scheduler folder, lib scheduler folder, that's a little small. Did you just enhance the editor code and not the whole UI?
I don't
Do you
know.
normally do that?
Let's.
I usually do just the command or control plus or minus and do the whole UI. Yeah.
That better there, buddy?
Yeah, I think so.
got
So over there so we have the scheduler folder that allows us to kind of organize libs together that relate to the scheduler app. And so we created this services -common lib with the intent that all of our kind of logic, you know, rules, logic sort of thing would go inside of this lib, whether it be services, whatever we're going to put in there, functions, whatever. So that our feature lib where we do the UI and the routing just concerns itself about that part, and it can ask the services common lib, hey, I need you to do some work, go do the work.
Do you want to go into the episode service?
Yeah, so the episode service is what our can activate is service is calling, right? So we have a can activate service that we wired up to that route. And inside of there, that is calling our logic, our episode service, to find out if they can sign up for the episode, right? Based on the episode ID that came in from the route.
Yeah. And you'll notice our implementations here are just local. And I think Justin follows a very similar path, that you kind of like fan out your implementation as you're going through. That as you are starting with your UI, you may create your template, and that may need a variable. All right, well, I need to fan out a little bit to be able to add that variable to the component. And then maybe that needs to be populated from a service once I've finished at the component level. So there I fan out to a service, and then to a route, to a module, to another library, and just fill in the surrounding code that empowers what you've already done. So at this point, we haven't empowered a back end or anything to support this application. So right now it's just a local observable, but it's also ensuring that we are fulfilling a contract for the types that are going to be returned from these functions. So it's consistent. And as you change things underneath, the things that are above still continue to function as they were.
Yep. Allows us to iterate, right, over time and just kind of get there, not be blocked by, well, we don't have the back end yet, so we got to wait. This allows us to keep moving forward and building the pieces. And that's another element where, as we separate out these things and organize them and partition them, into different locations, like our, services common for here, then we're isolating like where that work can be done. And it makes it even less friction for us to say, okay, we can just make these changes up here and not have to worry about it, under the hood. When we solve that, we'll get it solved over here, right?
Yeah, and by defining those contracts and what loud bang, by defining those contracts up front, it allows us to segment and work friction or without friction in the different areas as we fill in the logic behind those contracts to satisfy them.
Cool. So yeah, so back in the like in the Explorer, if we go back in the Explorer here, please.
Sorry, I was making sure that my wife was okay. Say it again.
Back in the Explorer.
Back to the Explorer. Got it.
Back to the Explorer. Door of the Explorer. All right, so under our scheduler folder, we started creating some kind of concepts here. So we have our home feature, and that's our landing page for our scheduler app. If you come in, we have our episode request feature where we'll have the form and, probably like a, hey, thanks for signing up page after they fill the form out or whatever we do, right, for setting an episode request up. Those are our two feature modules that our scheduler app is using right now. And then we have our services common lib, which is where we're going to put all of our kind of business logic or logic and rules, the code that's going to support those features in any way where we can keep all that kind of logic out of those components and then that UI.
And you can see also there's not a lot of code in here. So the idea of having the libraries, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, it doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. They can be very segmented and very isolated so that they have very few responsibilities. I don't want to necessarily say they're single responsibility, but they have very few responsibilities that are all logically grouped together.
It's really trivial, and it's most of the time pretty low cost for us to just add new libs. So it's a good thought to say, hey, I can partition this into lib because there's not a lot of overhead for me to just do that, right? It does come into play a little bit through when you have different libs and you run into things like linting or building or things like that. And that's one of the big benefits that NX does provide and does solve, is this knowledge that how can it make working with mono repos more efficient and more faster and for the developer and the teams. And so NX helps to solve that thing to make it really, really like almost zero cost for us to just build a new lib, right? So I kind of always try and gravitate, just like what Mike said, is okay, how can I partition things, keep libs smaller, keep libs focused, If I want to organize it and have a separate lib, bam, do it. If I want to have, because you can do other things like module boundaries and stuff where you say like, this lib is only designed to be included by these other libs. And if you try and import it into this lib over here, that's not the pattern that we want. So we can enforce that via linting and stuff when we have those things partitioned out into libs. So it gives us a lot of these opportunities to solve a lot of stuff across the board. And then the great thing about it, I think, that is that if you're living in a monorepo, and I really look at everything that I do, like any other project I do, even if I'm just going to have one app, I always start with having the possibility of having it be a monorepo, having multiple projects, because it can just grow and evolve. You have that foundation there, then you have the ability to get wherever you need to go in the future faster, right? Without a rebuild or rework or whatever. So
I completely agree.
All right, so we separated out, we have some routing. We've separated out our business logic for figuring out things like at the UI level and at the routing level. What I like to think about is that those things need to, like, when it comes to the UI, right? And we're talking about the browser, like, what is the browser really responsible for doing? It's going to render stuff in the viewport. It's going to take in user interaction, right? And that's it. It's not, it runs and executes JavaScript under the hood, of course, but it's the UI part of it, the viewport part of it is not about running that JavaScript, running that business logic. So I try to mentally think about that and go, when I'm building the UI layer, how can I think about what it actually is capable of doing in that viewport? And then everything else, I want it to be saying, hey, some code over here, I need you to go do something. Go do this, go do that. Give me this, give me that. The UI layer, I have it not care about how you do it. I care about what I need to do from a viewport level, right? And that helps me separate out and try and keep that business logic out of my UI, out of my components, which leads to a lot less friction when I need to change the view, when I need to replicate and use the same view in another spot, when I need to scale and grow that stuff, or when I need to use that logic somewhere else, right? And agnostic of the UI. So
I'm trying to see if what I did is working. I'm trying to run it. I think I was on the wrong version of Node, so now I don't know.
All right. Yeah, we're getting to this. We're at the top of the hour, so maybe we'll wrap things up. I think we're definitely going to do this more in the future, so we can certainly come back to dive into more. But let's switch over. Yeah, let's check in and see what you've got here.
I don't know if I feel like I broke something or did something I wasn't supposed to do. But if you go to the docs component, I added a typeset one, and then see, maybe it's my variables like that. But in their example, they just had one where they exported just like one typography, whereas I'm doing 3 because we've got like 3 fonts that I want to use throughout, and it's like the different styles. So if you scroll, Mike, are you up to date? Is that?
I'm following you. So wherever you go, I go.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay. So we have here, I've got special type that I'm exporting. So I guess I can stop exporting this. I think this can be deleted because I'm not using typography was their example. So I'm exporting special type, and that's our, oh no, I messed it up. This one's supposed to be bulby. So I messed this part up. Let me go back and bring this back. And then instead of changing that, I'm going to change this to special type and then export special type. And this is our bulby 400 with our sizes. And so this guy can be deleted. Bloop. So we export all 3, which I don't know if that's proper. We've got Ubuntu, and then we've got our Roboto Sans, and I plugged in the different weights here, and of course the different sizes. And then down below, you'll see in the docs portion, or like, here's our specialized type. It's bulby. It's got these font weights, and then it like loops through them. Same with Ubuntu, but I can't get it running on my machine. So I don't know, like, Justin, is it erroring for you, or is it showing that docs page? Because I'm wondering if I like exported too many items. Like, so I'm not actually allowed to do that.
I'm restarting Storybook. so that it can pick up that new page. I don't know if it would pick it up automatically, but right now I think it's failing on a syntax error. So let's do this. Can you comment out or just cut out the content of this?
Yeah. What do you mean? Like
Um,
you want me to comment out this stuff down below, the basic type?
Yeah, like the majority of it. So I can get Storybook running in the
Okay.
browser, and then from there we can tweak it and it'll have this page. But I just want to
Mm.
get this page running in Storybook.
Oh,
Um,
I'm just gonna cut it and then we'll see if if you can get it running now.
all right.
Because commenting out did not work. That was not happy.
You can't paste it right back in because he has autosave turned on.
I do have autosave turned on, so you got to cut it and leave it cut.
Philip said all open source projects should have a YouTube channel. All right, that'd be fun. Did it work? Is it running? Is it still contemplating running?
No, because I have, like Mike said, I have autosave. So if you pasted it back,
I
the
didn't paste
file
it back.
autosave.
I just cut the
Oh.
stuff. I just cut the stuff down below that would be rendering. I guess my exports are breaking it.
I got you. Okay, let me try it.
I'll cut all of it.
That's fine.
It's all gone.
Yes. Because no, I just cut the stuff that would render, not the exports
Got it.
at the top.
Okay.
It's not easy to code when you can't see any of your output at all.
I don't have the page. All right.
It's an empty file as it stands
Okay,
right now.
add the meta tag.
Okay, you think that might? Let me go back.
Yeah, let's see if we can get it to show up here.
All right, paste everything in. We're gonna leave the meta tag and anything else, or just. I really think I jacked it up because I'm doing multiple of these. Like, well, no, I wanted you to collapse. Stop that. How do I get out of this? What are you?
I think
Nobody
you have to
wants me.
export those const. But
Oh, these? You think so? Okay.
Let's take everything from 4 down. So just leave line 1 through 3.
Oh, you want this one? This meta bump?
Yeah. So leave line 1 through 3, and I can see if it renders in Storybook, and then that way we'll have something that we can
comment that out, maybe. Although I don't have those variables, but you should still be able to see it, right?
Typeset.stories.mdx. The file name looks right. I'm not seeing it in Storybook on the live run.
I know that was the same thing. I got it running, but Storybook wasn't showing this. It's because did I need to import this anywhere? I just created the file. Was that enough?
Should have been.
Yeah, it should be enough. And as long as it's named right, stories.mdx, that looks right. I don't know if if it just doesn't like that other code there. Let's see.
Here, delete it. We're just gonna get it to run, right? That's all we need.
Yeah.
And we're not actually rendering anything, but that shouldn't matter, right? Like it should just.
It should, I would think. Add a hash space type set or something. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not seeing it in the menu. I don't know why. It's weird. Maybe ditch the export as well.
This part.
So you just, yeah. Somebody's at the door. Oh, there it is. It's there. Okay.
Yeah. So it's really unhappy with something in this.
Oh, now it's gone. Oh,
yeah, it's unhappy with it's something in this that it's unhappy with. That's funny. Okay, well, I'm gonna repaste this, and then what I need to do, we can wrap. But what I need to do is essentially, I think I have to figure out each of these can't be their own export, so I need to figure out a way of because I need multiple types. So I was like, oh, this is my special type, and this is my basic type. But I think it's breaking on that. I don't think it wants me to do that. You see what I'm saying? I think that's where it's grumpy.
Gotcha.
So. But I'm just going to undo until I was to the point that I had it. And I'm going to take all of this, copy, and I'll put it in a side file so that I can have it, but I don't want to break your website. And then I'll just do the meta tag and, oh, it doesn't autocomplete. How lovely. Do you know if it's self-closing?
Probably if you have the extension. Maybe not. I don't know.
Okay. And then
But yeah, there's a
now
lot
you
of
at
different
least yeah.
things that you can do with the doc blocks, these doc blocks, right? You can show source. So they have a source one that allows you to, if you want to just show source code on the page with pretty print sort of stuff, you could bring in other stories. So if you want to have on the page and talk about, oh, here's our buttons, you could actually bring in button stories, I think, and render those in here in the single page, in the one page, right, in the documentation page. So if you wanted to do that, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it it'll be fun to kind of explore that more. Fun to have that stuff as like a brand stuff for AngularAir. We can kind of reference as we build other apps and things like that. It'll be fun.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, we definitely need to schedule some more of these in the future.
Right. But to be clear, this isn't the only show type that we're going to have. We're still going to have guests on. We're still going to be talking to our guests about different content, different things that they're building, and going through and learning and sharing with us as well. But this is also fun filler as well, because it's something that we'll find useful, and hopefully you find it useful as well.
Yeah, we got a show scheduled for 2 weeks from now, so we got that coming up with the guests.
Yeah, and I'll start scheduling us some more regular guests, but we just want to take a break, a coding break, pair coding break. Yeah.
Awesome. Anybody have any picks they want to plug today, say today, before we wrap up? Mike's going to pick his woodworking.
Well, yes and no. Find other outlets. Coding doesn't have to be everything. Find other interests. Have fun doing something.
I like it. Alyssa, do you have anything you want to plug today, or
no?
Just that it's Friday.
It's Friday. I know.
It's Friday for us.
All I'm thinking about is 100 cupcakes, man. That's all I can think about.
Wow, that's a lot of cupcakes.
That's a lot of cupcakes.
You have to put candles on each one and light them.
Yeah. Well, so most of them, it's a dino theme party. So most of them are gonna have little dinos, and then.
All right.
Yeah, the cupcake will have a candle. So I figured one candle is enough for a 3-year-old to figure out. Like,
yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, my husband's over here saying you were planning sparkler. I found sparkler candles, right? And I was so excited to try them, but he thinks I'm going to terrify him. So we'll see what we end up going with. So,
yeah.
Isn't that an occasional goal as a parent, to terrify your children?
To terrify your child with their birthday cake? Yeah, obviously.
I mean, you already got dinosaurs.
That means more cake for you.
And sugar. It might be a little risky to bring in the sparkler.
I know we're adding like a bigger fire element. So we'll see. We'll see. What about you? You got any picks?
I'm trying to think if I do or not. I do. Oh, yes, I do. I don't know. I'm not going to be able to really show this, but let me see if I can kind of show it. I've got like Corsair and Elgato stuff. I should be sponsored. I would love to be sponsored. At this point, I probably don't need to be sponsored because I already bought all their crap, right? Which I love. So I got this arm. So I've got the Elgato Wave 3 mic. I'm moving it, so you probably can't hear me talk as I'm moving it. But I got the mic, and it's really cool, and I like it because it comes with the USB device inside of it. So I kind of have one device, and I have pretty good audio. But it's really light. So the arm that I got, I had this blue arm for a mic arm that kind of extended up, but it required the mic to have a certain weight on it. And so this mic wasn't heavy enough. So it would just like fire up in the air and just stick straight up in the air. So I had to like really tighten things. It was a mess. Yeah. But anyways, fast forward to now, and Elgato makes an arm, and they sell the arm. They have on their site the arm with this mic on it. So I'm like, oh, it's got to work, right? Because they got the mic. And it's a low profile one. So it's just one that swings out. And I've got that set up now, and it's like, it's right down here. You never even noticed it in the stream because it was so low, but it's right in front of me, but it's above my keyboard. So it's not in the way of my keyboard. And I just rotate it and slide it back underneath my monitor.
Oh, nice.
Again, I'm talking while I move it away. But yeah, so it's the low profile Elgato Like
Oh,
I'm stoked on
cool.
it.
Do you have a
If-
doc? I've started keeping a doc of like all the pieces of equipment I've had in the past and I currently own, so I can share out with people like my reviews of them. So you should, I definitely
Yeah.
recommend like keeping a documented list, even for yourself, because sometimes you're like, wait, where did I get that? Or how much was that? Or yeah, but that's awesome, man.
I agree, and I would like to. We should do that as like a page on our website when we do our
Ooh,
website. We should make a page about
yes,
our
setup page.
setups,
Yep,
each of our setups,
yep,
and what we can recommend. That'd
yep.
be cool.
I had the same problem. I had to get this big weight.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything like that. I should have asked you, but so now I don't. I want the
Yeah,
the
Mike, you
arm that I
don't need
have. But
yours because mine popped. Like he was talking about, it was too light.
Nope. Mine's been perfect since I've got it.
it's awesome.
That's weird.
But I don't have a doc to remember where I got it. I'll have to search my Amazon history because I'm pretty sure that's where I got it.
Lame. Don't worry, we'll make you do it once we have a doc on the site.
Awesome.
Justin, can you check real quick? Did the new Type 1 load, or did I break it with my whip? I probably broke it with my
Oh,
whip.
let's take a
Never
look.
mind. That's definitely not working. I made a work in progress one, but I think that's gonna break the site too, because I think they all have to be valid for it to render.
All right.
Well, this was fun.
We'll check next time.
Yeet.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. That was fun. We'll see you next time. Later.